It's this recognition of the value of the void and the interplay between the void and the stuff. It's empty of preconceived ideas in terms of the way we live in life. It's voiding ourselves. It's being open. It's being responsive. It's being receptive. Being receptive to what? That wisdom of the universe that we've been talking about. The cycles of the universe. It's being receptive to that. The Tao, this cosmic principle, this purposeless cosmic principle. Why do I say purposeless? Does that mean it's bad or there's no use for it or it's futile? No. It's that when we talk about the Tao, we're talking about this universal energy, but it's not like God in the Western world, where it's very purposeful, and where there's this idea that there's this relationship between you and some personal source, some divine being. It's not purposeful in that way. It's rather this kind of neutral force moving the universe. It's neutral. And we all move with it. It's purposeless in that it's not watching out for you, John, in a personal way, as if you, John, have some specific purpose to do. It's not exactly like that. It's purposeless in that it's moving along as it will. And things like the farmer might seem good or might seem bad at the moment. But it's part of this bigger ebb and flow. And it's not about you. And so being receptive to that wisdom and kind of stepping out of that allows us to move with it rather than against it. And so emptiness in Taoism is that receptivity. Throughout his writings in the Tao Te Ching, you see many metaphors at work. Not only the uncarved block and the 10,000 things, but also the metaphor of the valley and the woman. The valley. Sure, the valley couldn't exist without the mountain. They're part of the same geography. But he thought we'd be wise to look at the value of the emptiness in the valley and the softness of the woman. Know the right, but keep to the left, he said. Know the mountain, but live the wisdom of the valley. Live in that spirit of openness, softness, receptivity. Be careful of standing up too tall, as the mountain does. Another reminder of humility. Because what happens when you stand up too tall for too long? You get tired, or worse, you fall. There's a passage in the Tao Te Ching to just that effect that we'll look at together. Always these reminders to be soft, to be small, to be receptive, to be humble. Know the valley. Know the soft force. That's why he loves the metaphor of the woman, that gentle female force. The final term I want to put on the board today is Te, like Tao Te Ching. Te, Tao Te Ching. Such a simple little word that is sometimes translated as power, like the Tao Te Ching, the classic book of the way and its power. But it's a different kind of power. It's not power as in might. It's not power as in brute force. It's power like the judo master. It's power like the grace of an Olympian swimmer. It's that kind of power. It's the power you get from moving efficiently as someone moving with the wisdom of Wu Wei. It's that kind of power. It's grace. It's the power of graceful movement. It's also a sort of virtue and wisdom. It's virtue, it's wisdom, it's grace, it's power. It is that grace that comes from moving with the Tao rather than against it. It's the power that comes when we can live through instinct, which brings us to Lao Tzu's suspicion of formal education. This is where Lao Tzu and Confucius clashed the most. Remember yesterday we were talking about Confucius's love of tradition, love of education, love of proper social forms found in those 5 relationships, the duties we have within those relationships, and you must do this, and it's that patriarchal wagging of the finger, and this is how you have to do what your father says, and do this and do that, and be educated, and walk properly, and talk properly, and dress properly, right? And Lao Tzu, you saw the video? What did Lao Tzu say to Confucius? Do you remember? Remember that? You, sir.
Don't be so open about it.
Yeah, you, sir, you're a very smart man, but you better be careful, because you better be careful about speaking your mind and judging others too quickly, something to that effect, remember? Because Confucius was condemning everybody all the time, right? But Lao Tzu, he knew that's just a recipe for trouble. He knew it. Boy, can the rest, I think we can all learn from Lao Tzu. It's so tempting, isn't it? To wag our finger all over the place like Confucius. But Lao Tzu is saying, be careful of that. And that's why he was so suspicious of formal education, because it was so forceful. Molding you, forcing you. This is how you have to be, young man. This is how a proper man walks, right? But to Lao Tzu, this is all very artificial. This is why we have problems living together, Lao Tzu said. We've lost our intuitive powers, our intuitive sensibility. We've lost our ability to sort of be at one with nature, if I can put it in that corny phrase. We've lost our ability to move with grace and intuition. And with grace. And with softness. And so, for Lao Tzu, he emphasized intuitive living, simple living. And do you remember what Suzuki talked about? Natural living. It reminds me of a story I heard about the old Japanese carpenters. They didn't use blueprints. They just developed, through working with the wood, the sense of how things should be. And Lao Tzu would say that through too much artificial, forced kind of instruction, we've lost our sensibility for that. Natural woodworking, natural craftsmanship. That feeling that comes through time. And knowing how to work with wood, knowing how to look for the grain, knowing how to cut in accordance with the grain. And now, we're almost helpless, without that formal kind of forced instruction that Lao Tzu was so suspicious of. So he wanted to bring us back to nature. And he thought, yeah, people are good. Confucius is right about that. But we need, to a certain extent, to be left alone in order for that goodness to flourish. Because when too much is forced upon us, not only do we lose our instinct with nature, but we lose our ability to be virtuous naturally. We forget how to act. We have to be told how to be virtuous. And there's something very artificial about that, and he was very suspicious of it. So he was very suspicious of formal education. And so, it all goes back to the teaching of Tao, because that power, that grace, is also a sort of natural virtue that comes if we would have the faith in ourselves to live by instinct.